With Preston Scott is on WFLA.
Gotta love that choice. 52 degrees outside. It's the second hour of the radio program. Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate that. It's the morning show. I'm Preston Scott, and we're glad to have with us Nathan Dunn, who's the Vice President with Florida Family Policy Council. And Nathan, good to see you. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let me get that a little bit closer to you there. This thing, you know, I pointed out last hour, it was a deadlock in the Charter Review Committee. They I think, just decided, since they couldn't move it, that the best thing to do is to punt it to the county commissioners.
Sure.
And so the county commissioners, in a preliminary vote, voted 4-3 in favor of this homosexual rights ordinance, just, I guess, in principle. And then you get to the agenda item, which is a summary of the actual ordinance, and the summary is 12 pages. And I think, you know, we put a link to it, folks, at the website, WFLAFM.com. I think what really is surprising to perhaps some is this is not just a simple thing. This is a very invasive, in my mind, ordinance that they're proposing.
Well, that's right, Preston. I think the basic question is it necessary? And the county and the proponents of this ordinance have really brought forward no evidence of discrimination in our community. There's been no cases brought forward to show that this is actually needed ordinance in our community.
Now, they list in their, you know, and by they meaning the staff prepares these documents for the council, the commission. They've got in one of their tables other counties in the state. But
Sure.
As I look at it, there's 6 of them. Is that the number of counties that actually have language that extends this kind of ordinance?
Yeah, I think they were looking at some other communities in Florida that have looked at the term sexual orientation or gender identity and expression, and that those counties have included those in their non-discrimination policies. However, you have to keep in mind that only 12 states and the District of Columbia have added both sexual orientation and gender identity in their housing and employment non-discrimination laws. And that's you know, it demonstrates that there's not a huge need out there for this. It's not something that a multitude of local municipalities and counties have seen a need for. And really, at the local level, governments and businesses will make changes when those changes become necessary. But here in our community, there hasn't been a demonstrated need that this policy is needed.
Well, let me just ask you, though, back to this table. I mean, they list Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, Monroe, Pinellas, and Orange counties.
Mm-hmm.
Florida doesn't have anything like it, and but it almost it's almost as if they're trying to suggest, look at all of these Florida counties, but the overwhelming majority of counties in the state of Florida don't have this type of ordinance. Isn't that the point?
That is the point. That is exactly right. If this was a huge problem, we would be seeing counties evaluating this and proposing this all over the state, and that's just not the case. Federal courts, the state courts of Florida have rejected multiple times placing the categories of sexual orientation or gender identity under protected classes. It's just not something that is an immutable characteristic similar to age or sex or race, other categories that are protected.
Now, you say that there's been no evidence that's been presented to suggest that this is necessary. One of the attachments on the agenda item is a survey that was handed out to members of the Tallahassee gay, lesbian, bisexual community, and 46% of the respondents said they experienced verbal harassment, and 1 in 5, roughly, said that they felt like they had been discriminated against in housing or employment. So, I mean, do you just dismiss the relevance of that, or is that not a sufficient amount of evidence, or is that percentage not high enough to warrant some measure of intervention?
Sure. Well, I think the important thing about that survey, Eric, is that that's an internal, that's a one-sided survey results that they presented. And again, it demonstrates that perhaps some people had hurt feelings. I don't deny that. I'm sure that happens out there in our community and in different businesses. But at the same time, there's no actual cases of employment or housing discrimination that have been brought forward to my knowledge and that have been presented to the county commission.
Well, would they have to present it to the kcounty commission? I mean, what is the appropriate recourse if someone's discriminated in housing, say, because of their sexual preference? First of all,
Sure.
If there's no current ordinance against that, then what is somebody? I mean, what's somebody's recourse? I mean, do they go to the Florida Commission on Human Relations? Is there somebody at the county level?
Yeah, well, actually, you suggested a couple of good things there. One thing to point out here, the county attorney, actually in a story that ran in the Democrat prior to the March 23rd vote, indicated that in his 20-year career, there's never been a case brought forward that alleges discrimination in housing in our county. Okay, and so that's an indication. And actually, in the housing code, this the protection for sexual orientation has been in there already for 10 years. And so you have to question, I mean, what is the need if the county attorney, the one who would know firsthand about all of these, is saying he's seen no case in 20 years, then what is the real agenda that the proponents of this ordinance are getting at? And you'd have to conclude, the logical conclusion is that this is really a political agenda that they're trying to push upon the people of Leon County to try to, to have the county commission capitulate to.
What housing code is it already in? At the state level? Or
The county.
So the county's housing code already says you can't discriminate based on sexual preference.
That's right, and that's what this ordinance is actually amending. They're expanding it massively to include both sexual orientation and gender identity, which actually the technical terminology for that, according to the American Psychiatric Association, is gender identity disorder. It's actually cataloged as a mental illness, and so they're wanting to take both those categories and place them not only in protected. As a protected category in the housing code, but for employment, which is really where the rubber hits the road for all the local businesses. And this is going to affect businesses with employees as small as 5 people. And so that's what the business community is being alerted to. I have been communicated to that the business community is going to be opposing this adamantly before the commission next week when it votes on it on Tuesday. And so there's a huge problem for the business community, but also for the religious and faith community here in Leon County as well.
I want to talk about both of those one at a time. And joining us, Nathan Dunn with the Florida Family Policy Council. Nathan, first and foremost, you mentioned it can be detrimental to business. How so?
Right, Preston. Well, the businesses have to realize that if we're going to have a protected category of gender identity and expression, I'm not even sure how they would define expression, but that is going to place employers in untenable situations. I mean, in making decisions on how to deal with questions about dress code, about customers and employees, bathroom situations, locker rooms, shower rooms. I mean, the list goes on and on, Preston, in terms of the distractions that Leon County businesses are going to have to face with this.
Yeah, the expression part of it, and look, folks, I tend to just kind of deal with things on their just face value, what they are. The expression part of this, one of the biggest complaints that I hear is, for people that make the decision to live a gay lifestyle, a homosexual lifestyle, and I believe it is a choice. But the biggest complaint I hear is from people that say, look, if that's your choice, just live it privately, do it quietly, don't flaunt it, don't stuff it in everyone's face. And it's almost like the word expression in all of this is an open entree to just be able to do just that, to be able to live it outwardly, to express it outwardly. And I can't speak for anybody else, but if I were an employer and I had someone who was a heterosexual and talking about his conquests every day at the bars and the clubs, I would no more want that person as an employee than I would of somebody who's espousing a lifestyle that I don't agree with outwardly either.
Right. Yeah, and Preston, I think it's important to point out, I mean, this divisive issue that's been brought before the county commission, this is not, this discussion is not about whether people who are in living homosexual lifestyles are good people or bad people or contribute to our community. That is a given. I mean, that's not, they are citizens, they're American citizens,
sure,
to all the rights that everyone else is. That's not the point. The point is whether this policy that's brought forward by homosexual activists is something that's good for our county, or does it put the misguided desires of a few above the interests and the needs of the whole community?